Coming to you from deep inside the bowels of a great big empty. Get ready for another episode of The Home Defense Show with Skip Coryell.
And that was Golden Glenn, the official announcer of the Home Defense Show. I'm your host, Skip Coryell, author of 22 books, Marine Corps veteran, founder of the Second Amendment March, proud father of 7, grandfather to 19 and counting. And as a special bonus, I'm also madly in love with my own wife. My priorities in life are God, family, and country, in that order, and I hereby promise to never compromise in my convictions. I may go broke, but I'll never go woke. And joining me today, as always, is my faithful co-host and adoring wife, Sara Coryell. Sara, what's got you all excited today?
Well, today is our son Cedar's 19th birthday.
That's right, it is. I remembered that.
I know.
We're going to have a good time with him today. What does he want to do?
He wants to watch Mall Cop and some other movie about a superhero. And
Paul Blart Mall Cop?
yeah.
Okay.
And he wants pie, which we're on a very crazy diet.
He
Pie
wants
is
pie?
rare. He wants me to figure out.
Actually, I kind of like the way he's thinking there. Like cherry pie?
I'm going to send you to the store for whipped cream, though.
You know, I have been on this diet for, the last 5 days?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think pie is on the diet. I've been counting calories, right? And it's working. It's working.
Today might not be a lose day.
Oh, boy. I miss Mocha Frappuccino, but it's like 370 calories for a bottle.
Well, you can have it without the sugar in it, and you get more.
Frappuccino without sugar.
Cafeola?
The sugar is what makes the Frappuccino, I think. There's a little bit of coffee, a whole bunch of milk, and then twice as much sugar, I think.
Coffee and cocoa and almond milk with a little bit of milk in it, and that's my treat right here.
All right. Well, we're going to have a great time with Cedar on his birthday. I may or may not eat pie. We'll see what happens. But, you know, I'm on this diet. My goal is to lose 15 pounds, you know, basically over Lent, over the next 40 some days. So we'll see what happens. I'm telling all the listeners now so you can all hold me accountable because I've lost 3 pounds this week. So I'm on track.
Doing great.
I just got to keep going and then I have to not gain it back. But
you're off to a smashing start.
Yeah, well, basically I'm eating 1,500 calories a day. It's like I'm on the edge of starvation.
And you're walking and exercising, weightlifting,
Yeah,
swimming whenever
that's true.
Open the pool
That's
for
true.
You. Yeah.
And all the work that my wife has me do.
Sorry.
So, Sara, what's on the show today? I think we got a good show.
Well, today we're having an in-depth discussion with Father Gregory Hogg all about the spiritual wounding of those who use deadly force to defend themselves and other innocent people. Then, in the shootingclasses.com self-defense report, we'll be speaking with firearms instructor Jason Paletta about an Ohio boy who protected his mother from physical harm and was charged with murder.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a good talk with Father Gregory because he's talking about something that I've never really heard discussed in depth in the gun world. We talk about, you know, when are we legally availed the use of deadly force, you know, about the moral aspects of deadly force, but we never really talk about how it affects the person who takes the human life. So this should be pretty good. I'm looking forward to it. But before we get too far into the show, let's thank our sponsors, United States Concealed Carry Association, shootingclasses.com, Center Shot Indoor Gun Range, and Apple Tree Media. All right, Sara, what's in the news today?
An elderly Florida man shot an intruder point blank in his home after the stranger broke through his glass door and began attacking his wife, authorities said. Authorities responded to the unidentified couple's Panama City home to find Nathan Gerald Edwards, 31, unresponsive and sprawled in the tiled entranceway near the shattered glass door. Deputies found a pistol on the kitchen counter, which the husband supposedly used to shoot the alleged burglar. Prior to the break-in, the homeowner, who had been standing outside his house, noticed an individual walking down the street behaving erratically, according to authorities. He was screaming and swearing and, according to witnesses, acting very aggressively and erratically. Bay County Sheriff's Office said in a statement on Tuesday. The man, later identified as Edwards, then approached the homeowner in a threatening manner, according to the investigators. The elderly resident, who is in his 70s, police said, attempted to retreat into the garage and into his home, but the stranger pursued, eventually smashing the home's glass door to pieces. Once inside, Edwards allegedly assaulted the man's wife. The man then went to the front door, which was glass, and busted the glass and made entry, officials said. The man knocked the wife to the ground, got on top of her, and was beating her about the head. The woman's husband then raced upstairs, retrieved a handgun, and opened fire on the 31-year-old, emptying several rounds. The husband stated he felt he could not physically stop the intruder, so he went upstairs to get his firearm, Bay County Sheriff's Office stated. He shot the firearm multiple times, ending the threat. Edwards was pronounced dead at the scene of the shooting. The homeowner isn't facing charges at this time. The man's wife was transported to the hospital for her injuries. Detectives later identified the intruder as Edwards, whom they said is originally from Georgia. He was allegedly staying with a group of people in a short-term rental property near the couple's home, according to law enforcement. 4 people were slapped with an assortment of charges, including drug and child neglect offenses, in connection to the case after investigators visited the rental home where Edwards was supposedly lodging.
All right. There's a lot in that one.
Yeah.
You know, I picked this article because this is kind of like my my nightmare, right?
Yeah.
But the guy, I think he did pretty good. What are your initial impressions of this?
I think he did the best that he could. He tried to avoid everything. He did all that he could to avoid a problem, when retreated inside of his house.
Yeah.
But then he rightly corrected. I mean, he's not going to fight that guy off. That guy, something was really wrong with that guy. So he went and got his gun.
And the guy was a lot younger, right? You got a man in his 70s.
Well, and aggressive and erratic already.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, mentally ill people or people on drugs, they're kind of like a wild card. They're stronger. They have like zero inhibitions. And they're coming after you with, like gangbusters. The average person, they have an emotional thermostat. They can turn up the intensity. They can turn down the intensity. A mentally ill person or a person on drugs, they're not in their right mind. So they basically have an on-off switch. It's more binary. It's like they're either at rest or they freak out and they just start trying to kill people. But another thing that I saw here, which is really worth talking about, is he ran upstairs to get his firearm.
It's a long time to be gone. If he's on top of his wife, beating her already, that seems like a long time to be gone.
That is a long time.
And he had to leave the room. I mean, the man could have thought of something worse to do.
Well, and you're assuming that the bad guy is going to let you go upstairs. I mean, he was busy beating the wife, but what if there had been 2 of them?
Yeah.
That's why my rule is I have to be able to get to a gun within 5 seconds. That includes opening up the gun safe, getting it out. My general rule is there should be a firearm on each level of the home. The basement, the first floor, and if you have a second floor, one up on the second floor. But most people, the vast majority of people, they have one gun safe and they put it in their bedroom, which is usually upstairs. And that's exactly what happened here. It could have cost his wife her life because he had to do that. So, I mean, he did a good job, but from now on, he should have a gun on the main floor as well. That would have saved him probably, 15, 20 seconds?
What's the name of those little safes we have kind of scattered?
We have the Hornady Rapid safes, and then we have some other ones. We have gun safes. We're not typical, honey. We have gun safes everywhere.
But those Hornady Rapid safes, those are very nice.
They are nice.
You have a little wristband for them, but I use just a little key code, just a little 4-digit code, which I like to do. But because of the way they're designed, they can just fit in little nooks and crannies around your house. So we have one tucked.
Yeah.
Several different nooks and crannies here and there. It's very nice.
Yeah, we are never more than 15 feet away from a loaded gun in our house, but it's locked up.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's the only thing this guy could have done better.
Yeah.
But it would have saved his wife about 30 seconds of a beating around the face and head. Yeah.
Which you may or may not want to I don't know. But what if he had hit his wife? I mean, he comes downstairs all
Oh,
upset. I mean, he could have hit her if the man's on top of her.
well, that's true. That's why you have to aim.
Mm.
I mean, there's no substitute for that. There's danger in action and there's danger in inaction. You have to gauge what is the greatest danger.
Well, maybe he'd spent a lot of time with a gun in his earlier years too.
Well, typically that was probably a very close shot. You don't have to be a good aim from 6 feet away. And that's when you're talking about room length distances. He ran upstairs, he came back down. You know, the guy's on top of his wife beating her. He could walk right up. He could put the gun to his head and blow his head off. So there's really, you got a lot of options there. You just you have to keep your head. If you don't keep your head, then yeah, bad things can happen. But bad things were already happening.
Right. Yeah.
And we have no idea what this 31-year-old man, crazy guy, was going to do.
I'm not sure if he knew what he was going to do.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they very well both could have died if not for this man's firearm. So,
Yeah.
but I think he did overall. He did really really well.
I thought it was interesting that it wasn't just Edwards who got in trouble for this. There were 4 people involved in that got charges for it associated with drugs and child neglect.
Yeah,
So there was some kind of a housing arrangement that wasn't, healthy and good
yeah. Birds of a feather flock together.
or cause each other damage.
Yeah,
and
yeah. They,
become
they
worse.
they feed on each other. All right, good analysis, Sarah. Boy, we're gonna have you in segment 3. All right, and now it's time for our home defense show hero of the week. Who's our hero this week, Sarah?
Our self-defense show hero of the week is Dolores De Lopez, mother of 3 from Queens, New York. Dolores Diaz Lopez, 45, was walking along Hillside Avenue in Richmond Hill, New York, Thursday night, taking her 3 kids to see their mechanic dad, Benjamin Diaz, at work, when a man she didn't know leapt from a nearby maroon sedan. Jacob had just let go of her hand, running a little bit in front of her on the wide and fairly empty sidewalk. She said she was watching him. The next thing she knew, a man sprinted out of a car, grabbed Jacob, and ran back to the vehicle with him. Then I saw the man coming out of the car. He ran towards Jacob, Lopez told the Post. I was scared. I screamed, "He's taking my kid!" He picked him up like a bag of garbage, said Jacob's 9-year-old brother, Benny. The car was close by. He opened the passenger door in the back and threw my brother in the car. He shut the door and locked it. James McGonigal, 24, has been charged with attempted kidnapping in the bizarre, shocking incident. Diaz Lopez, Benny, and 8-year-old daughter, Zurili, sprang into action like a trio from an action movie and rescued a stunned Jacob. I ran around the other side of the car and tried to open the door, Zurili told the Post. I pulled it, but it didn't open. The man locked the door with my brother inside the car. Benny recalled McGonigal's passenger in the sedan, asking the apparently crazed kidnapper, "What are you doing?" He was sitting in the passenger seat in the front, Benny said of the man who police sources identified Saturday as McGonigal's father. The man who took Jacob said, "We're kidnapping the kid." It was up to Mom to finally save the day. Jacob stood up in the back seat, and I pulled him out through the front passenger window, she said as she gestured with both arms, made fists, and pulled her arms in, showing how she grabbed her son out of the car. She grabbed Jacob through the front window because the windows in the back were locked. "Give me that stupid kid back," McGonigal yelled. But by then, a crowd had gathered, and the men took off. McGonigal, 24, was arrested Friday after he showed up at Brookdale Hospital, apparently in the middle of a meltdown, and punched an innocent bystander. He was admitted to the hospital's psychiatric unit. "I'm superwoman for my kids now," Lopez recalled, noting that she's a little nervous to go out onto the streets with her kids again. "I want to have 3 hands," she said, laughing.
Yeah, that's a good story, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, Sarah, did you get a chance to watch the video of all this happening?
The video that I saw was her holding her kids.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there was an actual surveillance video of this event, and you're talking, it was basically 30 seconds. I mean, it happened really, really fast. But from the get-go, this woman, I mean, the kid didn't get more than 15 feet away from her. And when this guy jumped out, he ran around real fast, and she saw him running towards her child. She closed the distance. She grabbed onto him, but she could not wrestle him away, and because the guy was just much stronger than her, and it just happened so fast. But she went right up to the car, and she was able to pull the kid through the window. She did a great job. I can't see any mistakes that this woman did whatsoever. But one of the things that struck me as odd, can you imagine, you're in the passenger seat, right?
The father.
And yeah, and our 18-year-old, well, actually he's 19 now, our 19-year-old son, Cedar, is driving. He pulls up to the curb, and you go, "Oh, son, what are you doing?" And then he jumps out, grabs a kid. It's like the father, I'm guessing the father is not pristine morally as well, simply because why didn't he do anything to help or to stop what was going on? He just kind of sat back. I would have unlocked the door or opened the door and let the kid out. I'd have said, "No, you can't do that."
It might depend on the car. Sometimes from the passenger seat, you don't have controls like that. I was thinking he was helping by leaving his window down, and he let the kid go right past him. So, like that, maybe he was in shock a little bit. Wasn't very active helping, but
Sarah, you are always trying to think the best of everyone, for which I'm
I
grateful.
was feeling sorry for the dad. I mean, my goodness, what a bad
I
thing to
know.
see during
Okay.
in front of him.
Then I have a question for
Okay.
you. It was what? A day or two before this guy was apprehended, right?
Mm,
Why didn't the father call the police right afterwards and said, "Yeah, my son did this. You need to help him."
well,
He didn't turn his son
he
in.
didn't turn his son in.
So that tells me this is not a good father.
Yeah.
But we're not here to talk about bad things, are we? We're here to talk about the super mom from
And
Queens.
kids, my goodness, the two of them really helped her.
Yes,
That's
it,
great,
it
right?
was it was a family effort.
Blew that.
Dolores Diaz Lopez,
And
age
company.
45.
Good
Oh
job.
yeah, she did a great job.
Yeah, she did.
I think that you would have done the same thing, honey.
Well, thank you. I hope I would have had that presence of mind.
Well, actually, you might have shot him.
yeah, I don't know.
No, Sarah,
I think I would've
promise me
tried to-
right now, someone tries to steal our kid, you shoot him.
Yeah. Well,
Just shoot him, okay?
okay.
God will sort him
afraid
out
of shooting
later.
The kid too. But
Well, that's why we aim again.
I was thinking break the window on the car, but I think that might be harder than I imagine it to be.
Yeah, actually, that is hard. But hey, Dolores, you did a great job.
Good job.
All right, Sarah, what's coming up next?
Next, we're having an in-depth discussion with Father Gregory Hogg all about the spiritual wounding of those who use deadly force to defend themselves and other innocent people. Then, in the shootingclasses.com self-defense report, we'll be speaking with firearms instructor Jason Paletta about an Ohio boy who protected his mother from physical harm and was charged with murder.
I'm looking forward to all this. It's going to be a great show.
Right.
All right, in the meantime, God bless and stay safe, because we will be right back.
Firearms training should be easy. Instructors can focus on teaching and not worry about all the complex paperwork and management behind the scenes. Just pull the trigger and let us do the administrative work. Welcome to shootingclasses.com.
At Centershot Gun Range, we are passionate about training. Don't know where to start? We offer a 1-hour new shooter seminar to introduce you to the world of firearms and help you find training opportunities specific to you. Concealed carry, home defense, firearm safety, AR-15, private one-on-one training, custom training, or maybe you're on a security team looking to protect your church or business. We even offer weekday morning and evening classes. Centershot Gun Range has you covered. Start your journey at centershotgunrange.com.
Firearms training should be easy. Instructors can focus on teaching and not worry about all the complex paperwork and management behind the scenes. Just pull the trigger and let us do the administrative work. Welcome to shootingclasses.com.
Attention business owners. Are you leaving your website open to security issues and hacking due to a lack of maintenance or overseas outsourcing? Don't let that happen to your business. Choose experienced U.S.-based website developers that can customize your website to fit your specific needs. Appletree MediaWorks has been growing businesses online since 2009. With over 80 years of combined experience, their team conducts constant research and development to keep up with ever-changing online threats. Your website deserves the best protection available. Call Apple Tree Media Works today at 877-977-1364 to keep your website secure and grow your business online. Or visit appletree.media.
Avoid danger, save lives, and keep your loved ones safe. If this sounds good to you, you sound good to me. And I'd like to help you do those things. Avoid danger, save lives, and keep your loved ones safe. If you're looking for more excitement in your life, we have nothing to offer you. But if you are a thoughtful, responsible, nonviolent man or woman, we'd love to teach you what to do if something crazy happens. More importantly, we'd like to teach you what not to do. We currently have over 500,000 members. They are doctors and single moms and firemen and grandmothers and veterans and Democrats and Republicans and members of every faith. But the one thing they all have in common is that they know exactly what to do if something crazy happens. When you're with one of our members, you are safe. Our members know how to de-escalate situations. They know how to calm things down. We are the United States Concealed Carry Association. See what we're all about at usconcealedcarry.com.
Discover the little-known backstory of the U.S. Concealed Carry Association at usconcealedcarry.com.
Some say his face is painfully ugly, and I agree. But who cares? This is radio. Welcome back to the Home Defense Show with Skip Coryell.
And that was the beautiful and sultry voice of Golden Glenn, the official announcer of the Home Defense Show. Folks, we live in a dangerous world, and I want you to be able to protect and defend the ones you love. And that's why I have this show. It's my way of empowering you to accomplish one of your primary jobs in life. You are a protector and a defender. All right, listeners, before we get too far into the show, don't forget to check out our sponsors, United States Concealed Carry Association, shootingclasses.com, Center Shot Indoor Gun Range, and Apple Tree Media. Without our sponsors, this show wouldn't be on the air, so we thank you all. Well, and now I'd like to welcome a special guest to the show. He's Father Gregory Hogg. Father Gregory, welcome to the Home Defense Show.
Thank you, Skip. I appreciate it.
All right, that sounds very meek and humble, so that's a really good start, Father Gregory.
Is the volume level okay?
Yeah, it's fine. That's me making a joke. It's okay.
I see.
All right. All right, Father Gregory, before we get too far in, go ahead and tell people, just give them your bio, if someone were to ask who the flying liplock is Father Gregory, what would you tell them?
Okay, so I was born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, in the Eisenhower administration, which tells you about how old I am. And let's see, I went to college at Grove City College in Pennsylvania, which is kind of a clone of Hillsdale here in Michigan. I went to seminary at Concordia Seminary, Fort Wayne, Indiana, and I got a PhD in philosophy, aka piled higher and deeper, from Indiana University in Bloomington. That's my educational career. I got married just out of college to my wife, Cindy. We had 3 children of our own, and we adopted 2 from Russia. I now have 12 grandchildren, 6 of whom we live with because we bought a house together with my son, who's also a priest. I was baptized and raised in the Lutheran Church, served as a Lutheran pastor for 22 and a half years to the day, was received into the Orthodox Church, and now I've served as an Orthodox priest for almost 20 years.
Well,
So
you've been busy.
I have been busy. It's amazing because I don't do anything at any particular day. And then when you add up all the days, a lot of nothing adds up to a lot.
Yeah, well, probably most of my listeners aren't going to know anything about the Orthodox Church. I mean, when I first heard, Orthodox, I was thinking like Orthodox Jew because that's all I knew. Just spend a minute. Tell us about the Orthodox Church.
It's funny you should say that because when we first started Holy Cross, we were meeting in Dorr and we went to get a pizza one night of the week, and I mentioned that we were Orthodox, and that the guy said, "Are you Orthodox Jews?" And I said,
Yeah.
"No, this big cross that I'm wearing should indicate that I'm not Jewish."
That you probably had sausage on the pizza.
There you go. But the Orthodox Church, to sum it up briefly, when our Lord Jesus Christ rose from the dead and ascended into heaven and poured out the Holy Spirit on the day of Pentecost, the church was born. that church, the church that was then, is now the Orthodox Church. In other words, we have a 2,000-year history. I am a priest in the Antiochian Archdiocese, and the Antioch in that is literally from Acts 11, chapter 26, where it says they were first called Christians at Antioch. So we have an organic connection going back 2,000 years.
All right. So you come from good stock. You have a good lineage.
I guess.
Okay. All right. Well, Father Gregory, the primary reason I asked you to come on the show was I wanted to get your perspective on moral use of deadly force, because when I teach a concealed pistol license class, one of the biggest struggles that my students have is just the concept or the idea of taking another human life. And I explain it as best I can, as much as I understand. But I just want to get a different perspective. What would be the orthodox view on moral use of deadly force? I know that's a huge question, but hey, you're a philosopher.
Boy, that is a huge question. Well, I mean, of course, the Ten Commandments say you shall not commit murder. And traditionally, in ethical thought, there's a distinction made between murder and killing. So traditionally, we recognize there's a right of self-defense. Some of the church's great saints were military leaders. Theodore the commander and Theodore the soldier come to mind right away. So there is a right to defend oneself. Having said that, there's not an obligation to defend oneself. We believe since Christ died and rose from the dead, there are worse things than dying. And so I'm composing this on the fly. So let me think what I'm saying before I talk. That's always a good idea, right? So we have a right of self-defense. We don't have an obligation of self-defense. That therefore, like martyrdom is a very central concept in the Christian church, and so too is what's called a passion bearer. For example, we have two saints called Boris and Gleb. When the Russian state was first being founded, the ruler divided his kingdom among his three sons. One of the sons wanted to have the whole thing for himself. The other two, Boris and Gleb, on hearing that he was coming to attack them with an army, said, "We're Christians, we're not going to fight our brother." And so they willingly sacrificed themselves. And the name of the brother isn't as well known as Boris and Gleb are. So you have the right to self-defense, but you don't have the obligation to self-defense. The other thing I'd say is whether or not you take a life in self-defense or as a soldier in a country or as an executioner for the state, in every case, taking a human life puts a mark on the person who did it. It puts a wound, you might say. And the church recognizes that woundedness by having a time where the person doesn't participate in communion to give their soul a chance to heal. Does that make sense?
Well, from a certain perspective, you could probably misconstrue that as a punishment. Say, no, you cannot have communion with us. So you're like out of fellowship, or it kind of reminds me of some of the Old Testament laws where if a woman was during her monthly time, she was considered unclean. Is it like that?
That's raising a whole nother can of worms. Why don't we just stick with one can of worms at a time? Well, look, I was married no more than a year when I realized at a certain point that you can be right and be wrong at the same time. I think every man that's been married for more than a year knows that experience. And so you have to recognize that the things we do have an impact on our soul. And
Okay.
it's not being punitive to recognize that. It's being maybe more medicinal. A woman who's just given birth, for example, since you brought up that kind of topic, doesn't just get up and do her normal daily functions. There has to be a time of processing the change that's happened. And that's kind of recognized all around the world cross-culturally. In the same way, if I have taken the life of another human being, I need to pause and reflect on that. My dad fought for General Patton in World War II. I'm very proud of his service. And I know that he undoubtedly, as a tank gunner, took a lot of lives. And those events wounded him, and he carried that for the rest of his life. And when he thought back to World War II, the one incident that he loved to talk about was the time during the Battle of the Bulge when his tank commander ordered him to fire the gun at a barn because the commander thought that there were a lot of German soldiers hiding in the barn. And the gun misfired twice. And the commander's getting all angry with him. And before he could try to reload it and fire it again, the door of the barn opened up and a little boy came out with his hands up. The soldiers went to investigate, and the entire town had been hiding in the barn.
Oh, wow.
And I went back in the 75th anniversary of the Battle of the Bulge and saw the barn and talked with the descendants of some of those people who had been in the basement. They still remembered my dad, and they set up a little shrine. So, I mean, one of the most profound memories of his life was a time when God made it so the gun didn't work and people were saved. So, yeah, whenever we take another life, no matter what the circumstances are, we have to acknowledge that there's a wound there, and that wound needs healing.
That makes sense. That makes sense because certainly, anyone who's been in military combat, a lot of them suffer post-traumatic stress after that. And so it's like a spiritual wound that needs to heal.
Yep. Even Robert E. Lee said at the Battle of Frederickstown, he said, "It is well that war is so terrible, or we should grow to love it."
Yeah, he's one of my favorite commanders. I like him. Okay, so you have the right to self-defense, but not the obligation to self-defense. That makes sense, too. I mean, I can envision a few scenarios where I would be loath to protect myself if it meant killing someone that I loved. And there are situations like that. I mean, sometimes a family member will go crazy or they're just bad, and you have to decide, okay, do I defend my own life and, kill someone that I love, or do I just let them, have their way with me? So I understand that. Is there ever a time when it's immoral to not take a human life?
There are maybe I don't know.
Okay.
If I am working in defense of a third person who is not capable of making that choice themselves, you could make a case for saying that's a strong reason for exercising deadly force. So for example, if I'm a dad trying to defend my wife and kids or something like that, you could make a case for saying that would be hard to argue with self-defense in that case. But even then, there's still a wound made. I mean, that's the point.
Yeah.
And that's the thing we don't take seriously enough. We have all this PTSD and so forth among our soldiers, which is understandable. I mean, that's a horrible situation to be in. But we have to just acknowledge that there is a woundedness that occurs when I'm setting out to take the life of another human being.
Well, yeah, that's true. I guess from my perspective, okay, for someone like me who's had a lot of training in how to protect and defend myself and other people, I'll give you a concrete example. Let's say I'm in McDonald's playroom, and a man comes in and he starts to execute children.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm armed, I'm trained, I have the means to stop him,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't. If I don't do that, in my mind, which wound is greater? The spiritual wound that knows that I killed a man, or the wound that says, hey, I allowed small children, helpless, defenseless children, to die when I could have stopped them.
As I said, if I'm dealing with a situation where I have the capability of defending those who can't defend themselves, that's about the most understandable situation, right?
Yeah.
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 But it still leaves a wound. That's all I'm saying. That doesn't
Yeah.
mean you're a horrible person. It just means you've got a wound yourself, and you need to have that. You need to take time for that to heal and process. Even when a police officer has a fatal shooting, don't they give the guy time off?
Yeah. Yeah, they
Why
do.
do they do that? And the other thing is, you teach self-defense. You could look at your job in a certain sense as, how do I minimize the suffering that must occur? The
Hmm.
reason you aim is so that you don't have to, hit innocent people who had nothing to do with it.
Yeah, and it's not always black and white, and many times, most times, probably things happen very suddenly. Uh, most altercations are extremely sudden, they're extremely violent, and you don't have a whole lot of time to think about it. So, and that's one of the reasons we're talking about it now, so that people can get it straight in their head now, and just ask the question: when am I willing to use deadly force, or when am I willing to use less than lethal force?
Uh-huh.
And that's another question that I had. What about less than lethal force? Let's say someone is, beating up a child or trying to abduct a child. I don't have a gun. Am I allowed to intervene, or do I have the obligation to intervene with say fist, or just something less than lethal?
It's hard to give a good answer to a question that isn't completely formulated. Does that make sense? There's a couple of underlying things we have to look at. Okay, a couple of
Okay.
underlying principles, and one of them is death is not the victor. Because Christ has risen from the dead, the Christian believes that death doesn't have the final word, and therefore there are worse things than to die. A lot of this kind of argument is based on the idea, but they might kill me. I mean, I've said to my students sometimes, if a person said to me, "I'm holding a gun on you, either do what I say or you're going to die," I guess the first question I would ask, and I would probably be shot immediately, is, "You mean if I do what you tell me, I won't die?" Death is kind of inevitable. The only question is when and how. So that's an observation I make. For Christians, death doesn't have the last word because Christ is risen. So that's why, for example, a couple of days ago, we celebrated the 10th anniversary of the martyrdom of 10 Christians on the beach by members of ISIS who cut their heads off. I don't know if you remember that incident. It was in Egypt. And after that happened, some of the mothers of the men who were killed said, "I hope that some of the members of ISIS will come to my home. I want to thank them for making my son a martyr." I mean, that's a different way of looking at things than we're accustomed to. Uh,
That
so,
is
so
that's a lot different. That's
yeah.
a
So,
lot
so the
different.
so the first thing I'd say is, we have to have the underlying recognition that death is going to happen to everybody, and secondly, that Christ has conquered death. Therefore, we don't look at it quite the same way as somebody would who doesn't have that hope that we do. The third principle is, if you take a life, no matter how, whether quote unquote innocent or not, it leaves a wound on you, and that just has to be acknowledged and recognized. If a priest, for example, is involved in a car crash where somebody dies, he's suspended from the priesthood until it's investigated and may be removed from the priesthood. That's a theoretical possibility. So we look at life and death things slightly differently than perhaps some other Christians do. In no way do we want to glorify death, or glorify killing, I should say, which is something a lot of our movies do these days. There's a problem, so a guy comes in and shoots people, and the problem's solved. And that doesn't work in the individual case, and it doesn't work in the international case.
So, are you saying that in the Orthodox faith, it's a good thing for a normal person, a Christian, to be murdered by an evil person?
To be willing to be killed is not a bad thing. I mean, over against causing harm.
that is a tough teaching.
Yeah. And again, I want to stress, in no way am I saying there should be no self-defense. People shouldn't be able to carry guns. I'm not saying any of that. I'm arguing that when a gun is used and it takes another person's life, it leaves a wound on the soul of the person who shot, even if they're totally justified in doing it. And the church takes that seriously and acknowledges it. That doesn't mean they're cut off from communion and, you know what I mean, like as a punitive thing. It means, wow, you've been through something. Let's talk through it and work on healing. That's all.
Yeah, I guess for most of my listeners, the vast majority of them are probably Christians and most likely Protestant, and I was Protestant for over 60 years.
Hmm.
I think they view death differently. Even though to live as Christ, to die is gain. Most of the people that I went to church with, it's like they would say that, but they were still terrified of death. You're
Hmm.
saying that Orthodox Christians are not terrified of death or afraid of death?
I'm saying that we all strive not to be terrified by death.
Okay. Well, that would explain the number of martyrs in the in the Orthodox Church.
Right. The Orthodox Church is a martyr's church for sure.
Wow. Well, I am going to have to give that some really thought. I mean, I've been thinking about it for a while, but that is a very difficult teaching. It's a hard teaching, but hey, Jesus Christ, he had a lot of difficult teachings, and not everybody could do it. But
Yeah, and I want to be real. I want to make sure I make this really clear. I'm not saying that, for example, take a policeman or a soldier who have to carry a gun as part of their duties and have to accept the potential, if not the high likelihood, depending on where they're serving, that they might end human lives. I'm not saying that we shouldn't have armies or policemen. Far from it. I'm just saying that whenever we take another life, it hurts us too.
mhm,
You know, like you when you fire a gun, there's a kickback, right?
right,
Okay, a recoil. I mean, there's a moral recoil too. And if we just acknowledge that, we can actually find healing in a way that a deeper kind of healing than we can if we act like there's no problem.
yeah. Well, yeah, okay. I agree with that. Let me just tell you where I'm at right now, and
Sure.
you can just say, "Oh, okay, Skip, you going to hell, or what's
No,
going to
that's
happen
not
to you?"
something I'm ever going to say to anybody.
Okay, I know that. Let's say I'm at church, and someone comes in, and they start shooting people. All right,
Hmm.
I'm going to draw my gun, and I'm going to shoot that person to end the killing, which is
Yep.
kind of ironic, in and of itself. But where does that put me with the Orthodox theology?
What do you mean? Where does it put you with the
I
Orthodox faith?
mean, am I in line with the teachings of the Christian Orthodox Church?
Yes, absolutely. As I said, we support there being military. We support there being police. We recognize you've been given a gun and you've not been given a gun for nothing, right?
Okay.
But let me ask you, if you put yourself back in that scenario, would you feel the rest of the day like you felt before the whole thing happened?
No, no, it
You'd be
would
wounded,
change
wouldn't
me.
you?
Yeah, it would change me forever.
Okay, well, we're just acknowledging that and saying, okay, let's process that. Let's deal with that. Let's not act like nothing happened to you. It's going to be
Yeah.
healthier for you in the long term.
Sometimes, we believe the same thing, but have a different emphasis, and so it appears that we don't believe the same thing.
That's
Um,
fair.
I like the emphasis on healing. Okay, if I ever have to do that, I don't want people to call me a hero. I don't want people to make a big deal on my, clap me on the back and say good job and all of that. I That would repulse me. I would never want that to happen. But I would want people to pray for me and and just try and help me through it. And I think that's what you're describing.
Yes. And pray for you and pray for anybody who was shot and pray for the shooter as well. I mean, we all stand before God. We're all human. There's no non-humans here.
All right. Well, okay. I think we figured all that out. Before you go, you got any final words?
Just to reinforce again, military, like St. Paul says, that the ruler doesn't bear the sword in vain. Swords aren't for tickling people, they're for killing people. So we recognize that. We also focus on confessing that Christ has conquered death, and therefore we don't have to be afraid of it. I guess to sum the whole thing up in the words of Facebook, it's complicated.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, where can people go to follow up with any questions that they might have for you, Father Gregory?
Well, they can get in touch with me through you if you like, because you've got my contact info. That would be fine.
Absolutely.
Yep.
All right.
All right.
Skip at homedefenseshow.com. All right.
Thanks, Skip.
Father Gregory, hey, thank you very much for being on the show today and for your candid views, okay?
You're welcome.
This is Skip Coryell on Home Defense Show. Coming up next, we'll get some expert advice on the details of self-defense in our shootingclasses.com self-defense report. All right, folks, during the break, I want you to log into rumble.com and search on the Home Defense Show. I've posted a series of entertaining and educational videos there just for you. Check them out, and don't forget to like, share, and follow. Oh, and one more thing. Drop down and give me 50 push-ups, because we all know that a healthy, fit person fights better and is harder to kill. God bless and stay safe. We will be right back.
Firearms training should be easy. Instructors can focus on teaching and not worry about all the complex paperwork and management behind the scenes. Just pull the trigger and let us do the administrative work. Welcome to shootingclasses.com.
At Center Shot Gun Range, we are passionate about training. Don't know where to start? We offer a 1-hour new shooter seminar to introduce you to the world of firearms and help you find training opportunities specific to you. Concealed carry, home defense, firearm safety, AR-15, private one-on-one training, custom training, or maybe you're on a security team looking to protect your church or business. We even offer weekday morning and evening classes. Center Shot Gun Range has you covered. Start your journey at centershotgunrange.com.
Firearms training should be easy. Instructors can focus on teaching and not worry about all the complex paperwork and management behind the scenes. Just pull the trigger and let us do the administrative work. Welcome to shootingclasses.com.
Attention business owners. Are you leaving your website open to security issues and hacking due to a lack of maintenance or overseas outsourcing? Don't let that happen to your business. Choose experienced U.S.-based website developers that can customize your website to fit your specific needs. Appletree MediaWorks has been growing businesses online since 2009. With over 80 years of combined experience, their team conducts constant research and development to keep up with ever-changing online threats. Your website deserves the best protection available. Call Appletree MediaWorks today at 877-977-1364 to keep your website secure and grow your business online. Or visit appletree.media.
Avoid danger, save lives, and keep your loved ones safe. If this sounds good to you, you sound good to me. And I'd like to help you do those things. Avoid danger, save lives, and keep your loved ones safe. If you're looking for more excitement in your life, we have nothing to offer you. But if you are a thoughtful, responsible, nonviolent man or woman, we'd love to teach you what to do if something crazy happens. More importantly, we'd like to teach you what not to do. We currently have over 500,000 members. They are doctors and single moms and firemen and grandmothers and veterans and Democrats and Republicans and members of every faith. But the one thing they all have in common is that they know exactly what to do if something crazy happens. When you're with one of our members, you are safe. Our members know how to de-escalate situations. They know how to calm things down. We are the United States Concealed Carry Association. See what we're all about at usconcealedcarry.com.
Discover the little-known backstory of the U.S. Concealed Carry Association at usconcealedcarry.com.
They say he eats crayons and his knuckles drag on the ground, but that's only half true. Welcome back to the Home Defense Show with Skip Coryell.
And that was the beautiful and sultry voice of Golden Glenn, the official announcer of the Home Defense Show. And I'm your host, Skip Coryell. Don't forget to check out our sponsors, United States Concealed Carry Association, shootingclasses.com, Apple Tree Media, and Center Shot Indoor Gun Range for all your training and equipment needs. And now it's time for our weekly self-defense report, sponsored by shootingclasses.com. And today we're speaking with Jason Paletta from Pillar Training Institute in the great state of California. Jason, thanks for coming back on the Home Defense Show today.
Absolutely. Glad to be back.
All right. So we have got a really unusual article to talk about, a crime. It was kind of bizarre, but it was very interesting, and there's a lot of twists and turns here. But before I launch into it, just go ahead and tell people about Pillar Training.
Yeah, so Pillar Training, so we're a firearms and tactics training company based in California. We primarily do hosted classes all over the United States, teach primarily at tactical conferences, and most of it's law enforcement, but we also do classes for the well-armed civilians as well.
And whereabouts in California are you located, Jason?
So I'm located in Northern California, up near Sacramento.
That's a lot different than San Diego and Los Angeles, isn't it?
Extremely different. Honestly, you can probably count on one hand how many times I've been down there. So I try to keep up in the north area. It's a whole different California up here.
Yeah. All righty. Okay. Well, let me launch into this, and then we're going to get your analysis on what happened here. Okay, Jason?
All right. Sounds great.
Title is Boy, age 15, charged with murdering the man accused of punching his mom in the face several times. A 15-year-old boy in Ohio has been charged after he allegedly murdered the man accused of punching his mom in the face several times. On Thursday, February 20, Cincinnati Police Department officers responded at around 12:30 a.m. local time to reports of a person being shot on Pasadena Avenue. When officers arrived at the scene, they found the victim, who they later identified as Levant Hyde, suffering from multiple gunshot wounds. He was then transported to the University of Cincinnati Medical Center, where he was pronounced dead. Later that same day, authorities, including the Cincinnati Police Department's homicide unit, arrested and charged the teen for murder tied to the killing. Cleveland 19 reported that the teen's mother told police, according to an affidavit obtained by the outlet, that Hyde, age 30, punched her in the face multiple times while they were driving to a store on February 20. According to Hamilton County Municipal Court records reviewed by Cleveland 19, a warrant was then issued for Hyde's arrest for a misdemeanor domestic violence charge, and police asked a judge to issue the woman a temporary protection order against the man. Court records reportedly referred to the woman as the victim and stated that she had visible injuries on her face, and Hyde was later charged that same day. Police spokesman Lieutenant Jonathan Cunningham and a spokesperson for the Hamilton County Prosecutor's Office confirmed that the teen is one of the sons of the woman who accused Hyde of domestic violence. The outlet reported that court records state that the teen's mother and Hyde have 2 children. The prosecutor's spokesman further clarified to Cleveland 19 that the teen involved in the alleged shooting is not the son of Hyde. Cleveland 19 reported that the teen appeared in Hamilton County Juvenile Court on February 21 when it was alleged that the boy fired 12 rounds at Hyde. It has been ruled that the suspect must stay in the detention center or in shelter care until his next hearing on March 3rd. Tatiana Renches, an assistant prosecutor, said in court that the teen had time to find a firearm, open a safe, retrieve that firearm, and waited for the victim to arrive, and ultimately ended up firing 12 shots when the victim did succumb to his injuries. The outlet added that the incident between Hyde and the teen's mother occurred roughly 30 minutes before the shooting. All right, there is a lot there. And, initially, Jason, when I read the title of the article, my initial thoughts were, oh, okay. Some guy was beating up his mom, so, he shot him. But there's a lot more to it than that, isn't there?
There is, and, I picked up on some key words in that article. So as we break it down, we'll get down to those words and kind of talk about it a little bit.
All right. So what are your initial thoughts then, Jason?
So my initial thoughts, one, yes, he struck the lady in the face several times. He automatically, yes, it is going to be a domestic violence issue. They share two children together, though, quote unquote, the suspect in this, the one that shot the guy, is not his biological son. He was upset that Levant struck the lady several times. Obviously, her son was upset about this altercation. You can go back to the domestic violence, like I already mentioned, and yeah, they put in a domestic, whatever, a restraining order, whatever they call it back there. But we all know how, I guess, ineffective a piece of paper is. And then the kid goes to, after this, and this is a half an hour after the incident occurred, he goes to the gun safe, retrieves a gun. And to me, it was in the article, he waited for Levant to get there. So to me, this is almost a lie in wait situation. Waited for him to get there, and then he pumps 12 rounds into this guy. In my thought process regarding law enforcement, if I was to look at this, there's no exigent circumstances. There's no defending somebody's life. So that's the direction I'm taking this is, yeah, he shot him 12 times. It wasn't trying to defend his mother or save his mother. Again, we don't know everything that occurred when Levant came back, but what we know from the article is he did come back and he was shot 12 times by a kid that went and retrieved a gun and waited for him to get there. So to me, it's a lie in wait situation. That's ultimately, it's murder, bottom line.
Well, like you said, we don't know all the details, but for all we know, he could have sniped him from around the corner, shot him on sight, or they could have had words first. We just don't know. All this stuff will probably come out in the trial, but this sounds like premeditated murder. Can you give our listeners the rundown on what exactly is premeditated murder?
So premeditated is going to be when somebody has the forethought and plans something out before the event actually happens, rather than them reacting to an incident that causes great bodily injury or death out of self-defense. So he actually thought through this. He had a half an hour to think it through. He retrieved the gun and waited for him. That is all premeditated. That was all a thought process that he put together and waited for Levant to get there. And again, we don't know what transpired once Levant got to the house, but everything looks bad up to that point.
Yeah. Well, the way it's been explained to me, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but malice aforethought, in this case, it was 30 minutes, but I've been told by, lawyers and things that it could be 30 seconds in advance, and it could still qualify as premeditation.
Oh, I don't disagree with that. A thought process, it could only take it, 30 seconds to a minute. It's like something's happening, like, hold on, I'll be right back. Or they go grab a knife or some kind of weapon and they bludgeon somebody with it, or they shoot somebody with a gun. When it is going to be in terms of self-defense, it's going to be right then and there where they're trying to, defend somebody or defend themselves, again, from great bodily injury or death. And that doesn't appear the case in this article.
What do you think he should have done? What was the proper thing for him to do? Because there's certainly a lot of better things, but what was the best way for this teenage kid to handle this?
Again, we're only going off an article. So if in fact, they state that Levant had a restraining order against him, that would be, call the police. Hey, he's violating the restraining order. We know how well that works. It doesn't. And then if he had to take it to the next step is, protecting his mom or himself, then he can take it to the next level. Whether he had the gun on him or not, that's a whole other story. You got to check those marks as you go. Can't just go from 0 to 60 in, 1 second flat. You have to go through the process.
I think what they're going to find is that it was premeditated. He was just very angry. But, even if there was a history of this, and apparently there was a history of abuse, you just can't kill somebody because you're angry. A lawyer once told me, he said, if you shoot someone and your hands are ice cold, it was probably self-defense. If your hands are red hot and your face is red hot, you shot him out of anger. And he said that's, kind of the the layman's way to look at it. But it sounds like anger to me. This was a crime of passion in my mind.
No, I agree. And he was, it's a 15-year-old kid. He's tired of his mom being abused by this guy. He wants to protect his mom. He wants it to stop. You know, in his mind, was he, trying to do the right thing? Again, he's 15 years old, but usually depends on the courts. Usually it takes, 14 years old is going to be able to be tried as an adult or be able to found, be where they can find them able to stand trial, if that makes sense, regarding their mindset and, their maturity and everything else. And, for somebody to, again, like you talked about, to premeditate something, to have the forethought of, okay, I'm going to grab the gun, I'm going to wait for him to come back, then, what, by all means, by the article, it sounds like it was premeditated murder.
So what would you say to people who would sympathize with the 15-year-old? Because I know there's some people that would take his side in this.
Well, I know people that would take my side, and I know people that would definitely not take my side. It goes both ways. And what I tell people is, I usually don't put my 2 cents into something like this. This is very like on the edge. There's a lot of what ifs. It's not just cut and dried. And for this kind of story to come out is, I want to wait to see what happens in court. I want to see what actually comes out through the process, because there is so much that we don't know about this. And here we are making, essentially uneducated guesses about, what transpired other than what we read in the article.
Oh, well, we're not uneducated. We're just ignorant. There's a difference.
Right. Ignorant to the fact of what actually happened.
That's right. That's right. Well, and there's so much that tends to come out over the course of a trial, because, man, a trial like this, 6 months to a year, I mean, it could be a long time, and there's probably a lot of things that are going to come out that we don't know about right now. I think we should revisit this in 6 months to a year, if we can remember to do that, and just look back on it and see, what did they find out that we don't know right now? Because it's hard to make a decision based on an article here. On the one hand, I sympathize with the kid, but and I don't feel sorry for men that beat up women. I just don't. But at the same time, you just can't be a vigilante and just shoot somebody like that. So I see both sides, but we'll just have to wait and see, I think.
No, I agree. And like you said, it's before people start judging me for saying, oh, no, it was definitely murder and everything. Hey, don't think that I don't believe, what the kid, what he did. It wasn't justified for the law, but as a person and going through all that, is there sympathy there? Absolutely there is. But unfortunately, the letter of the law is what's going to be played in this. You can't have spirit of the law when when you're looking at murder.
Yeah, I've seen some outlying cases, just a minority of cases where they were really extreme and someone was being abused, over a long, long period of time, and they finally turned on them and they killed their abuser, and but they were still found guilty, but they got a much lighter sentence. We may or may not see that in this case.
Right. It could end up being, hey, okay, so like in this instance, that would be murder. In other instances, like you're talking about, it could be, pled down or dropped down to just manslaughter. So who knows?
Well, the state of Ohio will figure it out, and then we will know. All right. Well, hey, Jason, thank you very much. That was a tough one, but I appreciate you hanging in there and giving us the benefit of your experience and your knowledge. But before you go, Jason, tell us one more time, where can people go to find out more about your training?
So I have a website. It's pillartraining.net. You can go there. It lists all my courses that are coming up, or you can follow me on Instagram at pillar_training_institute_. And I post almost every day updates on courses. And that'd probably be the best way to get a hold of me. If you had a question, hit me a DM, send me a DM.
All righty. Sounds great. Jason, we're out of time, but thank you very much for the great analysis today.
All right. Thank you so much, Skip.
All right, folks, that about wraps it up for this week's show. I've had a good time, and I hope you have too. Please don't forget to thank our sponsors, Center Shot Indoor Gun Range at centershotgunrange.com, shootingclasses.com to help you find the right trainer for your needs, Apple Tree Media for website security, and the United States Concealed Carry Association. For all your self-defense needs, go to uscca.com. All right, I've written 20-plus books, and they're all available on Amazon.com in paperback, ebook, and audiobook. This week, check out my book, Self-Defense Scenarios, Staying Alive in a Dangerous World. It's all about how to defend yourself in difficult circumstances. And also check out the Home Defense Show on rumble.com. And if you want training from me in person, then check out Midwest Tactical Training at shootingclasses.com. Please join us again next week for all your home defense needs. In the meantime, God bless and stay safe.
Thank you for joining us this week on the Home Defense Show. Now, get out there and protect the ones you love. We'll see you next week with more of the best.
Bye-bye, boys!
Have fun storming the castle!